Hey guys, it's Wahima, but just call me Wah. Melanated! Welcome to another episode of my recap/review of 90 Day Fiancé Happily Ever After. This is the tell-all part 2. Alright guys, I have to do laundry. I don't like it when my clothes are out of the laundry and then they sit and they get wrinkled, so I'm gonna go on ahead and do them right now. I'm sorry if this bothers you, but... So first, we pick up where we left off, which is the argument between Russ and Anfisa and Jorge. So Russ decided to tell Anfisa to be quiet and let her talk, which roused something in Jorge. So he finally was like, don't talk about my wife like that. They're both going back and forth like, oh, you should own it, just like I owned it, blah, blah, blah. Russ shouldn't have talked to Anfisa like that. I feel like Russ just, I don't know, something about him. Russ and Pao get up to walk away to have a breath of fresh air, and that's it. They come back, sit down. Sean asks them if they have anything to say. They both say no. They just want to move on. So then they move on to the very, very, very tedious and awkward segment with Jorge and Anfisa. It's so awkward because it's clear that Jorge and Anfisa don't want to talk about any of it. Jorge started this whole thing by calling Anfisa a hoe, and he says it. I wanted to make her look like a hoe. And then when Sean asks him, well, what did you mean when you said what you said at the last tell-all to me? And he's like, I don't know, I just wanted to make her look bad. And I mean, his story needs to be a little bit more concrete than that. We know that it was probably that same video that he saw and he thought it was her. So then he decided he was gonna go on this campaign against her. And now they're back together and he wants to kind of refute all of it. And that's fine, but come up with like a better story. They don't even have like a cover story. It's just like, I was lying, that's it. Like, no, you weren't lying, because there is a video out there. So let's try to make up something that makes all of that make sense, you know? And Anfisa's just like, it wasn't me. I know that there's some things out there that look like me. I know there's a porn star that looks like me, but it isn't me. I don't know why people keep on saying that. And then Sean asks, do you know who's starting this? And Anfisa's like, no, I don't know who started it. So then they move on to Jorge and his arrest, and they're making it seem like he's some kind of big drug kingpin, that he had like 400 pounds of weed and, you know, he was only selling it to try to keep up with this lifestyle that he promised Anfisa, and that Anfisa might have been the person to call the police on him in the first place. And I'm just like, you guys, I don't know, maybe it's because they're not from Colorado or California, but like, weed is not a big deal. Now that it's finally, like, even when it was an underground trade, even when it was illegal in California, it was still never a big deal. They're acting like he had cocaine. They're acting like he had like heroin. They're acting like he's a meth dealer. It's so weird. It's a perfectly profitable legal business in California, the same way alcohol is. If you're not against alcohol, but you are against weed, I'm actually more against alcohol than I am weed, because you don't see people going to a rage of fit and beating other people up because they were high. Like, I don't know what George was doing. He's probably trying to do something illegal with weed in Arizona that is legal here, but isn't legal there. And then he cops out and doesn't want to talk about it at all, saying that he can't talk about it, he can't talk about it, oh, he can't talk about it. And I'm just like, you can't talk about it because you don't want to talk about it. Well, you could say like, yes, I am scared of getting 12 years. You could say something. They're so boring, and there was just so many awkward pauses because they didn't want to talk about it. And finally, Sean Robinson moves on, thank God. I'm trying not to fold any of my underwear on camera, and I don't remember if I just folded my underwear on camera or not. I'm just gonna wait and not fold them at all until the very end. So then we get to Chantelle and Pedro, and this makes me so sad. It just makes me so sad, you guys. They're talking with Sean, and Sean is asking, you know, how is your marriage these days? And they're both like, and it's just kind of like, it makes me just so sad that they aren't happy and that this is causing a huge rift in their life, which it should, but it makes me sad that it's even happening to begin with. He feels like it's family Chantel against him. Sean Robinson asks Pedro if he feels that Chantel's parents have an influence on her and her opinion of him. And he says yes, and she says not really. And that sucks. That sucks that she thinks something shady is going on, just either based upon the things that they've said or based upon the way their relationship is. And so she thought her husband was going to be the same way her father is with her mother. And I think that her mother is an alpha, and I think that Pedro is an alpha, and I don't think that it's going to be the same relationship. I don't think Pedro's going to act the same way that Thomas acts with his wife. Then they bring on Chantel's parents, and Pedro gets up and walks away because he doesn't want to have the conversation. He's just like, have the conversation with your family, baby. He gets up and walks away. Chantel follows him and convinces him like, hey, look, we just have to have this conversation and then you don't have to talk to them anymore. It'll be fine. And he's like, fine, let's do it. So they go back out. They have the conversation with the family. And Karen is just rude to me. Like, she's just rude. Like, to me, like, she makes a fake apology for pulling out his sister's weave, but says that she needed to protect herself and her family at that time, and that it was their job to quell River's behavior. And I'm just like, no, you wouldn't have, because you spent the entire time fighting a woman who doesn't speak English, antagonizing your guest who does not speak English. They think that Pedro's mother is actually running a scam. Chantel says no, and they say it could be possible. And Chantel's like, it's not possible. Like, back to her parents. Because she's annoyed at both parties, I feel like. She's annoyed at Pedro, but she's also annoyed with her parents. They're like, well, we definitely think it's a possibility. And then Pedro's like, you know what, see, they're never going to trust me. So then Sean asks Pedro what's the next move for him, and Pedro says that he's thinking of going back to the Dominican Republic for vacation. Chantel is upset by that because she doesn't want him to go, and then Chantel's mother says, that's muy loca. Like, you're sitting here antagonizing this man. You went to a private investigator to have his family investigated. You then said that you felt some kind of comfort knowing that you guys weren't crazy, that a complete stranger would feel the same way you feel. P.S. that complete stranger, that's their job. Part of their job is to sell you that your husband or your spouse is a terrible person, and so they're going to investigate them. Like, why on earth would they try to talk you out of it? Why on earth would they say anything you're saying is not suspicious? They want that money. It's just so much. It's just so fake and false. And, Karen is really, really, really trying to make good TV for her daughter. And part of me can't hate that. Part of me is like, you know what? Chantel and Pedro would be boring if it weren't for their family being crazy. And part of me hopes that this is all an elaborate ruse to get their daughter more money and get her on TV. Because if it's real, I really am sad for this situation. She quoted Sir Isaac Newton as though like he's this little known philosopher. To quote someone named Sir Isaac Newton, for every action, there is an equal reaction. It was so dumb that even everybody backstage was like, what? Then after that, they bring out the couples, and the couples briefly talk about what they thought of Chantel and Pedro's segment, and Paula pops up and says that she, asks Chantel, like, don't you think that, that your family was attacking him from the beginning? And Chantel says, no, they were attacking his sister, and it's because he won't let his sister speak for herself. Everybody is taking sides with their blooded family, but you don't want Pedro to do that. But it's okay for you to do that. I don't get it. Why shouldn't he protect his sister? The same way when they went to the Dominican Republic and chicken feet got served, you supported your family. You got back in the van with your family at the Campo at Abuela's house. So like, what? And it makes me sad because I don't want them to be not together. So finally, Pedro acquiesces and says, it's my fault. You know whose fault it is? It's me and my sister's fault. We're the ones who caused all the drama. That's it. For whatever reason, David chimes in and says, you need to really think about this because physical violence, when it starts this early on in a relationship. And I'm like, what? Sometimes it happens. Sometimes the aggression just comes out and you just got to fight it out. Like, that doesn't mean that they're going to continue to fight at every family function. David, what are you talking about? What's David talking about? Okay, so anyways, then we move on to Russ and Pao. And this is where I'm really starting to be on Pao's side because Russ obviously doesn't know how to manage emotions or manage other people's emotions. Really, he just only has his emotions, which are upset at her doing sexy pictures. Like, he just doesn't have a really wide emotional grid, And so when his wife had a miscarriage and then when her grandmother died and all this stuff was happening, he just tried to be there and support her in a way that didn't work for her. I guess she pretended to be really strong and that nothing was wrong, and he didn't take the time to try to beat through those defenses and have like a conversation. He must come from a very like a non-emotional family. And she had her part in it too, but even at the tell-all when she says you left me and I felt abandoned, he's just like, well, I'm sorry. Like not even like, oh my God, babe, I didn't know I did that, gave her a hug, nothing. Like, and then she gets up and she gets frustrated because he says that maybe the miscarriage was God's way of saying that they shouldn't have kids yet and that he's not ready to have kids. It just was so heartless. I really felt for Pao in that moment. And then she's like trying to explain to him and he still doesn't get it. He's like, I don't want to fight. And he's just sitting there smirking at her. And I know that that's just his default phase and he probably doesn't know he's doing it. Spoiler alert, she's pregnant now. It's all over everything. They're gonna really have to work on the way he responds to her emotionally because she's always gonna respond like that and he's always gonna respond with just kind of mild consideration, and that sucks. I was really on her side throughout that whole car ride back to the hotel and her saying she doesn't want to sleep in the same bed with him. And like at the end of this, Annie also says that she will go back to Thailand with or without David, that it doesn't matter, that she just wants to be happy. That at the end of the day, she just wants to be happy, green card or no green card. And I support that. I support it 100%. I do feel sorry for David, but life in America has not been the best and David doesn't have a job. But he says he can't go back to Thailand because he's got to like establish his life in the US. And I get that. He does. He can't just leave his kids again. All right, you guys, so that's the end of this episode. Let me know what you thought of it below. It was a really good tell-all. This was a good season. I cannot wait for next season. When I tell you that I cannot wait for Before the 90 Days, it's coming out next week. I can't wait to see Darcy again. I can't wait to see that white lady with that Nigerian guy. I can't wait to see that black dude who's gonna fly to the Philippines to meet some woman who he's never seen on video chat. Also, What Now has been showing, and I'm just like, why isn't this more promoted? I watched the first 3 episodes and it's good, but I mean, there's just like, at this time I can't do 3 90 Day Fiancé reviews. Like, I can't. And I actually started watching the 7-Year Switch. I don't know if you guys are watching that. I watched the first 2 episodes on demand last night and you know what I'm saying? I like it. If you guys want me to review the 7-Year Switch, please let me know down below, okay? If you like what I do here on this channel and you'd like to consider becoming a Patreon patron, please click the link down below. Patreon is just a way for you to give your girl a little extra tip if you'd like to give me something more because you really enjoy my content on this channel. No pressure. I don't have anything extra on Patreon, but when I do get some merchandise, I will be sure to give you whatever it is for free. And I want to thank you so much for your patronage. All right, you guys, stay tuned. I'm going to put another video up talking about Azan and Nicole because their story, girl, oh my gosh. All right, remember to be you, be true, and find your place. Bye.